All right. So today we have Jeanne McClure, who will be focusing on prompt engineering with AI. So welcome, Jeanne. Tell us a little bit about your work with AI.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm a postdoctoral research scholar with the Data Science and AI Academy. I'm also a three-time graduate of NC State. And most recently, my PhD was from the College of Ed in Learning Design and Technology, where I really focused on using AI technologies to identify student engagement. And so in their open-ended answers. And so the problem I had then was trying to build a traditional machine learning model, but we didn't have a lot of observations. And so we had to use LLMs. And this is back in 2022 and when we were trying to solve this problem. And so really this is where my prompting has really started, learning how to develop really good prompts to get the answers that you need, using the traditional frameworks that are out there that have been out there since the 2020s. And so I do that in like AI enablement across the campus.
That's great. So, what is a good prompt and why does it matter?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And it's something not only myself, like I said, have been working on since the 2020s and writing about. But I think before we jump into like what is a good prompt, we just really need to talk about like the AI we're actually talking about using it in.
Okay.
And
Right.
so, yeah. So of course we have our large language models, and that's really what we're talking about when we're talking about using these prompts. So like ChatGPT and Claude. And then we have like more multimodal tools like Gemini, where we work with images and documents. And then, of course, we have embedded co-pilots like Microsoft,
Mm,
which use like Word and Excel. And then, of course, now we have this Notebook LM that lives through Google, where we can ground answers in your own resources. And so we see the landscaping expanding, but across all of them, what's most important is how we communicate with these tools.
mm.
And so that's really where the prompt takes shape. How you build the prompt is what you get back. And so a really good prompt is just a really clear, specific request that tells the AI what you need. So why you need it and what a good answer looks like. It's the difference between basically being vaguely Googling something and then
Mhm.
actually having a conversation.
Cool. So I
Yeah.
think you're sort of alluding to this, but what would you say are some of the essential components maybe of an effective prompt
Yeah.
and what might that look like?
Yeah. So really, we need to think about like, quality in, quality out.
Right.
So when students write, tell me about climate change, they're getting a generic essay. But if they write, give me a two-column table comparing three common misconceptions about climate change with the actual science, now we're really getting somewhere, right? So we can build in ethical guardrails right in the prompt, cite your sources, flag anything you're uncertain about, and then how they learn to use AI responsibly, not just really quickly. And the second thing I really want to emphasize is really prompting is like a core workplace skill.
Mm.
And so being able to look at that answer and asking yourself, this is the answer you're getting back after your prompting. You're asking yourself, is it right? Is it biased? What is it missing? And do I have to change my prompt a little bit? And so there are different prompting techniques that you can use, and they're changing because the technology is changing as well. And so really thinking about that and kind of keeping track of your prompts is really important.
Great. And so I think, are you referring to iterative prompting there, or what does that look like in practice?
Yeah, so we do have like iterative prompting. And so uh but you could also use a prompting framework. So like Google has one called PAIR, Purpose, Audience, Information, Response. And Anthropic has one, Claude has one. You can look all of these up. And so they have different things within their framework on how to build a prompt initially, and then how you can kind of iteratively change or add to it, depending on how the output is.
And common mistakes that you see or that advice that you might offer for students in terms of prompting?
Yeah, so really, I think there's probably like three really big traps, plus one safety fundamental that we have to think about. So, like maybe the first trap is being too vague. Like instead of writing, just tell me about the American Civil War, and then they wonder why they get a useless answer. The fix would be like more surgical, like adding compare the economic impact of the Anaconda Plan on the Confederacy in 1861 to 1862 and provide me a two-column table for comparison. So really being specific is everything. And
Mhm.
then the second trap, I think, is like leaving out the audience and the purpose. If you don't tell the AI tool who this is for, it's just guessing. It doesn't have any way to specify what it is. So, like maybe act as a bioethics professor and outline pros and cons of gene editing for
Sure.
high school students. So, we're saying who it is, the bioethics professor, and who it's for, high school students. So, we can have like where this instruction and context is kind of like working together.
Cool.
Um, yeah, and then I think the third trap, like this is a big one, is that it's a one and done mindset.
Oh,
A lot of learners using these LLM ChatGPT, Claude, etc., treating the first answer like the final answer. And again, it's not. It's built in skepticism, right? And so
yeah.
asking follow up like, what in your answer is most debatable, or which claims should I verify in a primary source, or what perspectives might you be missing? These are really like important things to kind of ask back. And
Right.
and make sure that you're having this skepticism like within AI and not just saying, oh, this is the answer. And then I think finally, like there's this safety piece, like never paste sensitive or confidential information or data into any model. If you're working on your resume, don't put your address in there. Don't upload it
Interesting.
with the address. Uh, but it's interesting because now we have like Notebook LM, and that's where you can be more explicit about the scope. Where you're uploading stuff, and that's probably another conversation. So we're just talking generally about ChatGPT and Claude, but just making sure that you verify anything that feels off is really
Mhm.
important.
That's great. Yeah. So I appreciate that. So in other words, like avoid these traps, the common traps and mistakes, and then
Mhm.
think about perhaps also it sounds like you're saying other tools. So like
Mhm.
understanding the limits of these LLMs
Yes,
that you referenced and think about other tools.
right,
Um,
because they're not all the same.
Yeah, yeah. And so, and then I think that you're also sort of, we can infer this, but maybe go into more detail about how students can use prompting to support and not necessarily replace learning.
Yeah, this is really important. AIs, they want to be your friend. You notice the output is always like you're doing a great job, or so it's not like really giving you a lot of negative detail, I guess. So, but that's one thing to think about. But also, I think I really would emphasize like using AI for active recall, not just
Mm,
answers. So
mhm.
asking, what is cell respiration? Try I'm studying for biology. Quiz me for five short answers based on cell respiration, or wait for my answers before giving feedback. You could add all of these things in your prompts so that you're not getting trapped where you get the answer and you're actually using it as a tool for learning and strategizing your learning. I think also like using AI to rephrase and kind of pressure test your
Mhm.
understanding.
Nice.
Maybe saying like explain supply and demand, then re-explain it using a video game economy as an example.
Yeah.
So like you can kind of get analogies, and this would really force the learners to evaluate, does this metaphorically actually hold?
Yeah, nice. I
Uh,
like that. Yeah. So the
yeah,
pressure test and then yeah, and also kind of putting the cognitive load back on you and so the
yeah.
yeah.
So you don't have you have like more like we want deep understanding, not just memorization for these kind of tools. And then I think also like using AI as an organizer and a coach like for complex
Mm,
work. So maybe you could have a 15-page report and ask it to help you create 5 bullet outlines, and suggest a schedule to kind of go through those bullets and make sure to revise them like during the week. I think like a lot of we can use it for more than just learning context, but how we can schedule our learning throughout the week. And we can actually use AI to help us organize our learning so we don't become overwhelmed or bottlenecked right before we have a big exam.
yeah, nice. Well, great. Well, thank you very much. This is very helpful, and we'll take these back to our LLMs with us.
Great. Thank you so much for having me.
All right.